going to be a nice crowd, I can tell. Especially after everybody successfully navigated their way into the space. It's a beautiful campus, and I want to thank so much TCC for allowing us the space. But when I go on I can't ever figure out the garage. Come on the floor, go to the six, and the fourth again. I don't know, but we all made it, so you all passed. The first test. Thank you so much. So first, I just want to thank all of you for attending at this bright and early day. I know our coffee and refreshments aren't really the big draw. I know the big draw is this amazing group of panelists we have here. But thank you for caring about our community. Thank you for getting up this early and being part of what we do at the Fort Worth Report. Then I would definitely want to thank our staff. They do all this amazing work that has connected our community with trusted local news and information. A lot of them are standing around the back, but if you're with our staff, just wave, say hi, so you can be recognized. And then again, I definitely want to thank Tarrant County College. Tarrant County College is one of our two presenting sponsors today for today's events, and our sponsors make all this possible. Along with Tarrant County College, North Texas Community Foundation is a presenting sponsor, and Rose Bradshaw is one of our panelists. North Texas Community Foundation has been a long sponsor of our Canned Conversation series. They sponsor the food too, so if you got some food, thank them for that. Mm-hmm. And then our series silver sponsor is the Real Estate Council of Fort Worth, and a series supporting sponsors are BNSF Railway Foundation, Mental Health Connection, and the United Way of Tarrant County. So all those sponsors, if you just give them a round of applause, I sure appreciate it. Of course, what really makes this all go for us is our community, our audience, and it is growing so rapidly. We're very grateful. We're up over 78,000 newsletter subscribers, growing at a clip of close to 2,000 a month. We have almost 400,000 monthly unique visitors to our website. We have about 2,400 members now. Those are donors who make a meaningful contribution of any size, really important to our work. And you can become a gift right now if you're not. Become a member anytime if you're by making a gift. I want to right now though introduce a star of the show, our presenting sponsor, Dr. Elva LeBlanc, and have her do some welcoming remarks. Dr. LeBlanc, here we go.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. How is everyone? So I have a need for everybody to sit down unless they really have their heart set on standing. If you have an empty seat next to you, can you put your arm up so they can see where there are empty seats? We do have some empty seats. And it is a little bit like church. You may have to sit up front. I know those of you back there, I see you at church. All the time. So I get it. I know how that works. Thank you again for being here at Tarrant County College. I do want to acknowledge that we have one of our Board of Trustees here, Leonard Hornsby. Can I impose on you to stand so they get to meet you? So, community colleges have a very interesting governing body. They are elected officials and they represent the community. So it makes great sense for our trustees to participate in events such as this one, because they do represent you every single day. And as elected officials, they do not get paid. They do that because of their commitment to our students and to the community. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to this vital conversation about the future of philanthropy in Tarrant County. I cannot think of a more timely or meaningful topic, because for institutions like ours and like yours, philanthropy is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. Tarrant County College in 2025 proudly celebrates 60 years of empowering the region's evolving workforce with by educating the individuals in this community. We have been a catalyst for impact and a source of inspiration for thousands upon thousands of students and families. This year we graduated approximately 8,000 students. Only 3,000 chose to go through graduation, which meant we had 3 graduations, and our hands were hurting at the end of the day. But it was incredibly exciting to see the families, the parents. We had close to 1,000 early college high school students earn their associate degree before they got their high school diploma. That's a sea change in this community. Many of those individuals would never have even finished high school, much less think about going to college, and all of them, the majority of them, plan to attend one of our surrounding universities. So today, our mission has never been more clear: to be the guiding star for accessible, high-quality education that drives lasting change. As we launch our new strategic plan, Trailblazing Together 2030, we're taking bold steps to advance the mission. A shift to zero-based budgeting will ensure we use our limited dollars on teaching and learning that amplify student success, the very reason for our existence. For TCC, 2025 is more than a new chapter. It is a pivotal moment to shape better futures for all. We are investing in people, partnerships, and proven practices, and the returns are already inspiring. But to continue the momentum, we must, like each of you, strengthen the philanthropic relationships that power meaningful progress. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for believing in the future of this remarkable place we call home. And I want to express my appreciation to our stellar panelists, and I look forward to your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're just so grateful to Dr. LeBlanc for her personal support of the Fort Worth Report, and TCC's support of the Fort Worth Report has been tremendous. Just one housekeeping thing before we get started. Is Ella here or is she out front? Can we get water for the panelists? We should do that so they have a... Ella's here somewhere. Sonia, you can help that? Thanks. All right. I think we're really going to grill them hard, so they need some. Well, the topic of the day, of course, is preserving the heart of philanthropy, and I don't know how we could have gotten a better group of panelists than the ones we have. I'll do quick introductions. But the premise of this has been long in the making. We've talked about it for a long time, and obviously it's timelier than ever. But the heart of it really is that Fort Worth has a tradition in the state and in the country, really, as having one of the biggest hearts anywhere, of any city you'd find. But it's now 1 million people officially, and Fort Worth is changing. And how does it preserve that heart? How do we, well, first understand how it got here, and then how do we move forward with it? And we've got the right people to answer the question. So I'll just do quick introductions, although they really need no introduction, I don't think, to this audience. But right to my immediate right is John Robinson, who's Executive Vice President for the Amon G. Carter Foundation. In his 80 years, not his 80 years, in the... Sorry, John. In the organization's 80 years. The Carter Foundation has made charitable gifts totaling over $860 million. Rose Bradshaw, next, is President and CEO of the North Texas Community Foundation, which has granted more than $450 million to organizations in North Texas and beyond. And then Kelsey Patterson is co-founder of The Big Good, a nonprofit that supports and partners with local organizations that are focused on addressing critical unmet needs in Fort Worth. And Jessica Miller-Essel on the end is the co-founder of M2G Ventures and M2G Mental Health Initiative, where she and her twin sister advocate for mental health and have raised over $1 million for research. Really remarkable group, really remarkable. But thank you. But let's get started. So, as I said at the outset, sort of the heart of this question is, what is the heart of philanthropy in Fort Worth and Tarrant County? How did we get to this point of success? I want to start with John, who is, along with Pete Guerin, who's in the room, the Dean of Philanthropy, really, in Fort Worth. He literally wrote the book on giving. I'm waiting for the book to come out. It's coming out soon, so I think everybody in this room will be eager to read that book. But John, would you get us started with some background on the spirit of philanthropy in Fort Worth and what you've seen it accomplish here and how you see it changing?
Thank you all for being. Am I on? I'm not on yet.
Got the button up. Right. We'll try this one.
I'll do that.
Oh, it's a twist.
Okay, you see we practice this a lot.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, Elva mentioned church, so I think it would be sacrilegious to say in the beginning, so I will start with near the beginning. Eamon Carter had the Star Telegram here in Fort Worth, WBAP Radio, and later WBAP TV, which is now NBC5. Mr. Carter was known as the promoter of Fort Worth. Fort Worth was a different place then. We're sitting literally where Leonard's department store was. So Mr. Carter knew the Leonard family, the Monig family, the Cox family, the Stripling family, the Beecham family. Those all owned department stores in Fort Worth. All the banks were locally owned, so the decision makers back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s were all right here downtown. And so I think when Mr. Carter had an issue that he identified, he could reach out to his friends. Fort Worth was also unique, and there's been a lot of families with multi-generational ties here that have continued to invest in the area. And so as issues arose, they weren't necessarily solving them. They may be taking the lead, but what Mr. Carter could do through the newspaper and through his other media is he could broadcast the needs throughout the community. And I think the spoiler alert going forward, foundations are kind of the business of philanthropy. People are the heart of philanthropy, so it wasn't any of the foundations doing anything, it was the businesses. Mr. Carter had power because of the media. He really didn't have wealth till probably the last 20 years of his life. He found significant oil in the 30s. The foundation was started in the 40s after the sale of an oil property. Some of you may be surprised to learn after World War II, income tax rates were 90% on margin. So one of Mr. Carter's choices, he could have given 90% of $8.5 million to the government, or start the foundation, which has now grown to $800 million, plus we've given $800 million away. Or we could have given the government $7 million and let them spend it right away, and it'd been the end.
Good move.
Some of the history of philanthropy, or the heart of philanthropy, those families pushed people forward to make Fort Worth what it is. The next thing that happened is corporations grew. We were very fortunate. Charles Tandy, John Roach, Marvin Gerard, they were running public companies. Alcon was here, Mrs. Baird's Bakery. Those people, the leaders of those companies, were from Fort Worth and were interested in developing Fort Worth. I don't know if the Carter Foundation was first. I know that Mr. Richardson was on the board, and the Richardson Foundation came after us. The Burnett Foundation was started in 1978 after Charles Tandy passed away. Maybe that template encouraged, but as the banks went away, as the local businesses went away, there were individuals that were having success, generating wealth, wanted to share with the community, and so I'm not using any notes, so I hope I don't leave anybody out here, but in the last 30 years, you've seen the Andrews Foundation come around, the Goff Family Foundation, Norman Chronics Fort Worth Foundation, Miles Foundation, Justin Foundation, Morris Foundation, Ryan Foundation, Rainwater Foundation. They have really stepped in, and so there's a much broader base, but every capital campaign that's gone on, there are exceptions where those families have taken a lead, but most foundations are only 20 to 25% of a capital campaign. It's individuals that are making it go. And so, as you're going to hear from Rose, Kelsey, and Jess, what's happening to get these people who are not generationally from here, they're seeing the examples before them, that there's people who've gone before and made sacrifices, but to engage them is where the heart of philanthropy is to be capturing these new individuals that come to Fort Worth for them to feel a part of what's going on. So we went from individuals that were very interested to corporate things, now we're back to individual things. So I'll stop talking.
Feel free to jump in wherever. Well, let's go to Rose next. And if you would, please share what you've seen happening with the North Texas Community Foundation and the donor advised funds that are there, and also talk a little bit about you've lived and worked in other places like Chicago, Dallas, San Francisco, and compare what's happening in Fort Worth to elsewhere.
Sure, thank you. And it's just so great to see this room full of people who are all giving back so much. I look around the room and I think, oh my gosh, I can't start naming names because you never could stop. But from my experience, I've been at the foundation as the CEO for the last 7 years, and it's been striking to me to see our growth kind of mirroring the growth you see in the community, which is great news. So if you look back 7 years ago, we had $300 million in assets, representing about 200 families who want to give back here locally. Fast forward to today, it's $625 million in assets on behalf of 300 families. So we are seeing the growth really kind of hitting a stride. And I think that's because people come to Fort Worth, see what's happening here, and want a part of it. They want to be a part of this culture in this community. When you ask about other communities I've worked in, never Dallas, but in perfect. It's the only town you can say I worked in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and that would be preferable to saying I worked in Dallas. No, we love Dallas. We love Dallas. Wow. But here's what I observed here. It's different than those other places, and there's a lot of philanthropy, great philanthropy that happens in those other communities. But what I noticed when I moved here is this is a town where people feel accountable, and they show up when they find out about a problem and they understand how they can help. They show up. So we have seen that story, across the board. You've heard this amazing story of what happened in Uvalde. After a terrible tragedy, Senator Beverly Powell stands up and says, "We've got to build them a new school." Turns to Chris Huckabee. He says, "I'll donate our architectural services." And then look out, this town shows up to provide $4 million to help make that a reality, and the doors will open in August. For a town that people will never know our names, but you showed up because it mattered. Another great example of that is, we have the donors right here in our room who help make that happen. That's another story. The mayor learns that we have the second worst maternal mortality rate in the region. Says it's unacceptable. Turns to TCU Medical School, the Miles Foundation, nonprofit leaders across the community, hospital CEOs. They put together a plan. Funders stepped up to make it happen. And now we have a program underway that's literally saving women's lives in Tarrant County. So I am so heartened by the place that we get to sit at this nexus of really generous people and community leaders who are working their tails off on really hard problems. As we grow, the problems get tougher, right? I'm encouraged by seeing people bring what they have to the table. It's not always money, and money's not always the most important thing. There was a question that came up about the differences now to go between Dallas and Fort Worth. And again, I love Dallas. This is coming from someone who I love in Dallas. And he said, "Rose, I've observed that when a nonprofit asks for money in Dallas, the response is, 'What do you need?' He said, when we come to Fort Worth, it's, 'How can I help?' And I think that how can I help is just a message for all of us, because we all have something to give. And problems are getting more difficult, right? The scale of what's happening is challenging, but we've got the people and the brain power to make some great things happen. So I think no one embodies this how can I help more than John Robinson, Kelsey, and Jess. You'll hear their stories, and you're going to leave here so inspired by what they have accomplished. But it's also the men of Community Frontline in Stop 6. It's Roxanne Martinez on the north side. Not just writing a check, but actually making things happen because they step up alongside community members, they think through solutions, and then they're assembling the resources to make it happen. Sean Lassiter in the historic South Side, Dee Lara, Kent, my husband, nearest and dearest to my heart, starting a farm in Crawley with his best friend to be able to give back to our community. And there's someone I met this morning, Ella Rose Lee, who is now working at Unbound, TCU student from California, figuring out how to give back right here. So that is what I'm super excited about and the changes I'm seeing.
Thank you, Rose. Kelsey, let's go to you next and talk about when the Gary Patterson Foundation started and why you both decided it was time to rebrand as the Big Good in 2019.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know, my husband was the head coach at TCU for a very long time.
Go Frogs.
And so Gary and I both came from families that you gave back of time and then resources when we had the resources. So when he and I started the Gary Patterson Foundation, our focus was really on the issues here in the community that we saw young men coming into his program having issues with, that they saw in their communities. So family issues, education, literacy, we focused on those for about 17 or 18 years here in Fort Worth. And then the rebranding, we decided to rebrand in 2019, really bad time to rebrand right before COVID. So we wanted to bring on a partner. And I think you asked me in the panel or in the pre-questions why we rebranded. And Gary and I we saw an opportunity for growth, and we needed to make sure establish sustainability for the Gary Patterson Foundation. So we brought on a partner, Leon Bridges. We felt like this was a great partnership between the two because both Gary and Leon being from Fort Worth, growing up in a community here, and then Gary, a transplant, but has made Fort Worth his home, he and I have, really wanted to give back to the community. So we brought Leon on as a partner. The other thing that gave us was a changing demographic. Gary and I were starting to, as I hate to say, we weren't 80, but we were aging out. We saw that we would age out, and we wanted the impact of our foundation to continue. So we knew we needed to bring in a younger demographic, and that's what Leon brought for us. We want the Gary Patterson Foundation Big Good to outlive us. The young woman who works for us right now, Camille Kelly, is doing an amazing job, but her task is to decide what she wants it to look like in the coming years, because eventually Gary and I will move on to greener pastures, either on the golf course or really greener pastures. And so really the two reasons that we rebranded were for growth and sustainability. And we've really enjoyed it. One of the things that we based the foundation on was you find people who love your mission more than you do. And I think that's really the important thing in philanthropy is that when you're identifying, especially now with federal funding going down for a lot of the organizations out here, you need to find people who are invested in your mission as you are. Rose mentioned that it's not only about money, it's about your time and talents as well. So finding those people who are interested in what you're doing. For those of you who don't know, the Big Good, we have one event a year. We raise funds for 4 different nonprofits. And I think are any of our beneficiaries out in the audience this morning? Oh, good. Yeah. Awesome. So we just had meetings with them last year, and for 2 of the smaller organizations, one of the things that we discussed was being an extension of their fundraising. For those of you who do events and do fundraising, it's very labor intensive, and a lot of times the return is not what you want. So we see ourselves as an extension of their fundraising arm, and we really enter into the relationship with those 4 organizations as a partnership. So that was the basis of why we decided to grow the Big Good. And we're so excited for both, all of our beneficiaries that are in the room and all of the people that have supported us.
That partnership relationship is what's really interesting, and it sounds like it's been really meaningful.
It's been great. I think one of the bases too that, before I've made notes, but before I forget, as your funding goes down and as we all need to be leaner and meaner and more efficient, not that we weren't before, but I think the spirit of collaboration is going to be so important. Making sure that we're not duplicating efforts, helping each other. I started my career as a junior development person down in Austin, and my mentor was from Midland Memorial Hospital. And one of the things that he said to me as a young person was really interesting. He said, there is no scarcity of funds. The funds are out there. You have to find the want to, and the people who are, who are as driven as you are in your mission. So a little bit of hope for some of you out there is that there are funds. We just have to work with each other and find them. And we always say at the Big Good, if I can't help you, if you don't fall under our umbrella or our mission, let me connect you with somebody who is. Because I want everybody we want for Fort Worth to be successful. All of us in this room need to be successful, and we can help each other do that.
Great point. Well, Jessica, let's go to you. And you and your sister were activated in the giving by a personal tragedy. If you would, please share sort of that remarkable journey and how that fits in everything we're talking about today.
Absolutely. I'm going to start a little pre that. So I'm originally from Longview, Texas, so I've been here for 21 years, went to TCU. And I would say but several things. I was fortunate to have great parents. But my sister and I were told every single day, maybe not every day, but every 2 or 3 times a week, you can do anything that you want as long as you set your mind to it. You may not be the smartest person in the room, you may not have the most money, but if you work the hardest, you will succeed. And so we grew up with that mentality. They're entrepreneurs, still are to this day. And I consider myself an entrepreneur first, real estate developer second, and activist / philanthropist third, depending on what day or cause I'm advocating for. But we started our company in 2014 after working for different corporations for 10 years and went to TCU, like I said, and saw that Fort Worth had, and even at TCU, again, go Frogs, saw a real place that you could make a difference if you put your effort in and you put your talents in. I saw people want to open doors, which was very unique. Again, somebody coming from Longview, Texas, which is a very different type of community than Fort Worth or TCU. And so I took that and thought, okay, this is also a place I want to do business. I want to have a real estate development company. And so my sister and I started that in 2014, and quickly we saw the same trends. People wanted to help. People wanted to let us flex, maybe we did it a little soon and a little often, but she and I always felt like Fort Worth is one of those places that you could really feel a difference and make an impact. So we started our company in 2014. In 2015, I was married at the time, my first husband. We found out that I was pregnant, and he lost his job in the same month. So he had a severe mental break. And unfortunately, he was never able to recover, so he had severe bipolar disorder. So in 2017, he was hit by a car in the middle of a manic episode after we divorced because it was unsafe for us to be together. Ten years later, very hard to tell that story still. But in 2017, my sister and I did exactly what we were told to do. You can make a difference, you can make a change, you can make an impact if you care. So we started our mental health initiative at the time, and we did what we were, trained entrepreneurs to do, use our resources we were already paying for. So we used our real estate company to integrate a social impact arm into our company. And it is an honor and an expectation for every single person at M2G to contribute to that. Thank you. So in 2017, we started the mental health initiative. And in 2019, also great timing, opened the Center for Depression Research and Clinical Care,
with UT Southwestern at Moncrief, Kansas. We were fortunate enough to find Dr. Madhukar Trivedi, and I don't think he's here, but he's a gem of a human. Very smart. Let me get some water. But he's one of the top researchers in the world, and he is here in our community. So since we opened the center 2019, it's kind of a buzzkill, because we really opened in like March of 2020. But since that date, we've raised $1.6 million for UT Southwestern, as well as some of the other great philanthropic events we're a part of. We also partner with Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation that's doing fantastic work in our community. We partnered with them this past year on the summit where we brought several, over a dozen of the best world-class researchers from across the country to collaborate in Fort Worth. So they will start understanding that, we want their resources here, but we're also a community that's going to be cheering them on from far away. A lot of these people came from Harvard, Washington, D.C., across the country, and we're so thrilled to be in Fort Worth and that hospitable nature of every single person here saying that you can make a difference. How can you do it? We also have 2 signature events. We do Art of the Mind every year. We're big art people as well, and we do an art auction to raise money for MHI is what we call it, which come up with a better name, MHI, Mental Health Initiative, whatever. We're going to rebrand this year.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Wait,
no. Maybe coming. So we do Art of the Mind, and then we do a Muse at the Modern, where it's Dr. Trivedi, and this year it was Dr. Scott Perry, who's the head of neuroscience. Thank you, I get that. And at Cook Children, and as you guys know, they just did this fantastic brain institute that is world class that we also have here in our community. And we had Dr. Trivedi and Dr. Scott Perry kind of spar off on, who's doing the best work, which I love that they're both doing it. So that's really about us. We really have 3 pillars. That's advocacy, community, and research. I'm particularly passionate about research because it is longitudinal is typically underfunded in philanthropy because it is such a long-term results. You have to really be dedicated to getting a series of no's, because if you're into long-term research, that's also a series of wins. So that means somebody's checking it off the list. But back to Dr. Trivedi real quick so I can give him the proper shout out. So how we selected him, because literally Susan and I went around the country and tried to go find who was the best doing things in mental health that was saying it was not acceptable to watch families struggle like that. That there should be earlier identification, there should be a biomarker that's indicated, there should be better prevention treatments. And we found him here in Dallas, which was shocking as we've kind of gone across the country. So he is a gem of a human. We have the CDRC that is here at Moncrief Cancer. It's just the beginning for all that work that's here. And I would just say, on top of all that, Fort Worth's an amazing community. I've told that story so many times, and every single time I can tell every person in this room says, I'm going to do something more with what I can and my gifts. And so I give you guys each those challenges.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. And I've been one of your events that is really inspiring. To think what you've been able to accomplish. And I think what all of you said leads up to the next question that a lot of us have heard in the community, and John started off by taking everything, all the accomplishments of the community in the past. So people say, well, some of those 2 families have done so much in our community. How are we going to maintain that? How are we going to continue? Where did that go next? So I guess I'd throw that question to anybody on the panel who wants to jump in and answer that. Is how do you respond to that when people say they fear that philanthropy is changing, but how will it grow with the next generation?
Yeah, so the community is changing. One of the things that I would say is important for each and every one of us, not only as in our own organizations, but as individuals, is we have to educate the community on what the issues are. If you don't know what the issue is, you don't know there's a problem, and you don't know to support it. So I think the first thing, we talked about this earlier too, and Rose, I think, gave a great synopsis of what that looks like. You have to educate on what the issues are. You have to provide a roadmap of how to help, because sometimes you can show that there's a problem, but if people don't know how to help or how they can help, you need to meet them where they are, how they can help. You need to report on your success or on your failures, adjust, and then continue the cycle. But I think that the main thing that we've got right now is as we grow, there are also new issues that we need to educate the public on.
I was gonna add to John's point about his story in the beginning. Every single one of the people that he named started with one person trying to make a difference. They all didn't start as the biggest family in Fort Worth trying to, conquer the world or help in whatever cause they could. They started with somebody with a passion and a purpose and a company, and then they used all their additional resources to better our community. I would implore each of you too. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what the next step is and just start. I think being an entrepreneur, that's what you're kind of told to do. Just put one foot in front of the other, because it's kind of easier than figuring out maybe 10 steps. You usually can go for like 100 steps, but 10 is a little challenging. But I would just say, remember that every single person that's been in Fort Worth started as someone, and they started with a cause that they cared about. And I think every single person in this room, whether or not they know it or not yet, there'll be some point in your life when you find that cause or series of causes that you go, I have to put my energy and talent behind this. So just adding to that.
Just to jump, hello? Just to jump in there, 100% echoing what they just said. And sometimes I think right now with technology and the number of issues that are out there, it can be overwhelming. But what I found personally, it just drives my husband crazy because I jump out of bed in the morning. He's like, what are you so excited about? It's the people. If you surround yourself with people who are committed to making a difference, it fuels you. And so you start with the facts, and this is my advertisement for the Fort Worth Report, that we all need to provide financial support to this outstanding institution. Amazing reporting team. It does not come for free, so we got to start with the facts. But the relationships, and I think making sure we're intentional about that. And to your point about persistence, I mean, when Jess showed up with her dream on our doorstep, I thought, and she wanted to go after research around suicide prevention. I was like, boy, you are not starting small. And she said, and I want to raise $1 million, and I'm starting now. I said, okay, Jess. But to see what she has accomplished is so amazing. But she said persistence is everything, so we can't get distracted. These issues are real. Our nonprofit leaders need our support, and they need us to keep showing up.
I've talked to a lot of you throughout the years, and I think you've heard me say foundations are not the solution. I mean, I try to stay out of operating budgets, not because I know they're important, but for us to be doing the job we're supposed to do, we need to be helping you help yourselves. And so a lot of times, I can't speak for every foundation, because you say, if you've seen one foundation, you've seen one foundation. But I want to give people a chance to prove to others, I can take risk with you to see what works, what can be scalable, what can grow. But I want to be the catalyst to help you broaden your base of support so you're not relying on any one person. It's been said by everybody, there's plenty of money out there. Part of it's just get people aware of it. And so, I think we drifted away from your question, Chris.
Sorry.
I think Rose was right on the mark.
She did. Being 80 is harder to keep up. I didn't realize this was an intervention. One of the parts of my responsibility that I don't like, especially when it comes to capital campaigns, is a lot of times people are saying, we need you to be part of this so we can go to other people. And I guess there was a point in time where that might have been an important thing, but I think we're really past that. That it troubles me that if anybody thinks they can't go forward unless they have somebody's name associated with them from the start. This is not linear, but it's what comes to my mind. Ted Kitchens, who was the pastor at Christ Chapel a long time, he asked me one day, he goes, "What gets you up in the morning?" And I said, "You know, it has very little to do with money in distributing it." I said, "I think people come to see me with the expectation I'll have ideas for them, ask them questions that they haven't considered, even though that's what they do every day. And what gets me up in the morning is living up to your expectation that I can do that." And once again, it has nothing to do with money, but I want to help people have a strategy to be successful. So,
Well, moving the conversation along a little bit in terms of what we talked in our pre-panel discussion about to really preserve something, we gotta understand how it got here. So I thought we just talked like we did before, just briefly about what is it about Fort Worth? And I think Jess, you talked about the trailblazer spirit. You might talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I was kind of describing it a little bit as I was talking about kind of my venture from Longview to TCU and then to real estate person here. But what I continue to find for people that gravitate to TCU or gravitate to Fort Worth, same thing at my company, is that the majority of those people really like their impact to be felt. And I think Fort Worth is a series of trailblazers that have identified something, and they don't want to be a drop in the bucket. They want to be someone to really push change. And I think that trailblazer mentality is something that's really unique to our community. And I can't really put words on that for when someone comes to town. It's like you're going to meet with a bunch of people that are really going to push and challenge and, you know, really want to make an impact. But that's really what I find in Fort Worth. And again, a series of stories that have left me to where I'm today. But that people want to see your success here, and they want to see you make an impact because it makes Fort Worth a better community. And so it's a challenge for all of us.
I think you also need to build the community that you want to live in. And that's going to become more challenging for us as we've got people that are coming from other places. You talk about the people who built Fort Worth. They built the community they wanted to live in. They wanted a city with world-class arts. They wanted those things for their city. And so, back to the education and really giving people who are new to this community roots in this community. What's important to them, and emphasizing the importance of building the community you want to live in.
this is a little bit of a micro example, but if you can get people involved, their money's going to follow their heart. I mean, if you can get them to volunteer, and as they learn more about whatever the issue is, if it's a passion of theirs, that money will follow. I think a lot of the generosity in Fort Worth, I don't want to say it comes from private schools, but every private school's had a capital campaign. The families that have chosen to invest in that, number one, somebody came before them to let their children enjoy what they're doing. But when they reinvest in it, once they've been in a capital campaign, it doesn't have to be just private schools, it could be any capital campaign. They'll look around and there'll be pride in what they were part of accomplishing. And once people have done one capital campaign, they'll do another because they realize it didn't kill them. They feel good about it. Their lifestyle wasn't affected. In fact, it probably improved. And so the trick is to nudge them. What can we do to incentivize them to be engaged? If they're attracted to Gary and Kelsey and Leon, that is great. If they're resonating with what Jess is saying, that is fantastic. Rose and the Community Foundation, they are now their convener. They're hearing about every issue coming to town. They can direct some of those opportunities toward interested parties. But once they're involved, you've got them for a long time. A lot of times we've done incentive matches where we want people to commit to give for 3 years, because I think if they do something for 3 years and the nonprofit does a good job of connecting with them or whatever, they're going to keep them. So it's just getting them going. And so all these new people are coming. We just got to get them going.
Well, and I think too, you have to meet them where they are. Is there anybody from the Presbyterian Night Shelter here? Okay.
Great.
They're working today. Good for them.
Yeah.
So I tell this story. I sat on the Presbyterian Night Shelter Board, and homelessness is sometimes, there are some issues that are hard to get people involved with. And when I first got to the board, I looked around the board, and it looked a lot like me. There were a lot of people in 76109 and 76107, and I said, we really, first of all, we need to diversify our board, but we also need to meet people where they're at. There are a lot of people that were participating with the night shelter that are willing to write a check but don't want to drive to Lancaster. And that's okay. I think you have to meet people where they're at. And so one of the things that they do is called the dispensary. So if you travel for work, for pleasure, and you go and are picking up all those, you use half the bottle of soap, I would throw it in my suitcase and bring it home and take it to the dispensary. That's an opportunity for people to get involved with the night shelter and not have to go to Lancaster. I think we have to stop, for some people, we were shaming people for not wanting to address the problem, but if you're not comfortable doing that and you still want to help, we have to provide them with opportunities to help. As John said, if people are invested and believe in what you're doing, they will give beyond where it's comfortable. They will start giving to where it hurts because they believe in what you're doing. And so I would say if you walk away from anything, make sure that you're looking at your donors and meeting them where they're at and giving them an opportunity where they're at to get involved, whether that's money, time, talent, connections, networking, whatever that is.
In Fort Worth, if you don't give until it hurts, you give until it feels good.
Yeah. I took a philosophy class once, and I'm not sure if I agree with everything the philosopher said, but he said there are no altruistic acts because when you give, it makes you feel good.
Well, I want to get to one question that's on a lot of our audience members' minds and the questions we got before this started. And obviously, there's a moment in time here with the federal support seemingly disappearing, and we would like to get each of your thoughts real quickly on what concerns you about this philanthropy in this moment in time.
So I'm not surprised that Toby's not here, because I look around and I see Wayne Carson, and I see Kara Waddell, I see our nonprofit leaders at Community Enrichment Center working overtime in a time of uncertainty and really trying to do scenario planning about what comes next. And so I think as a community, we all have to appreciate that there's changes underway. No matter how you feel about it, our nonprofit leaders are still having to show up every day to meet what might be growing needs in our community. So what we're going to try and do at the Community Foundation, we banded together with our friends over in Dallas, the two community foundations over there, to conduct a regional nonprofit survey to really find out in real time, what are you experiencing, what's coming around the corner. And I think as a community of donors and other supporters, we have to help our leaders think through the next stage of work. There is, what we do know is they need 21st century tools and know-how to navigate this new world. I actually was so encouraged. I had a meeting yesterday morning with Adam Powell of the United Way, and he's got some big thinking around this about how do we prepare our nonprofits to be successful in this environment. It's going to take money, but it's also going to take new ways of thinking and approaches. So I look forward to supporting that work. And as you please, we'll send out the link for any nonprofits that are here. We want to make sure we get as much information as we can from you to figure out what the next right thing is to do. And it's going to take all of us on this one.
Go ahead. Other thoughts? What concerns you, or how we meet this moment?
I think if you walk away from anything and you've written my name on your piece of paper, probably the word that's next to it is collaboration. We really focus on that at the Big Good. It's important to us that everybody succeeds. And as your funding gets tighter, we do have to become more efficient. Again, like I said, all of us were efficient to begin with, and we think that there's nowhere to get tighter or leaner. And it's more about efficiency as a community. Are we being efficient with all of our organizations? Are there partnerships? It's really how Big Good was formed. We looked at it and said, how can we be more efficient and how can we do more? And we really feel like our partnerships with these, with our beneficiaries make us more efficient and make them more efficient.
One of my accidental training roles for what I do now, I've been at the foundation 45 years. I've had this responsibility since '97. In 1990, I was the chair of United Way allocations. And this may be hard to believe, but back in the 80s and 90s, or early 90s, United Way provided over 60% of the nonprofit budgets in the community. It was a different time. Anyway, in 1990, my first year chairing allocations, Lockheed Martin lost the A-12 contract, and 20,000 jobs disappeared overnight, along with $3 million of United Way funding. And so United Way was nationally, well, what are we going to do to cut these organizations' budgets? And my suggestion was, United Way is not going to cut their budgets. You need to tell the nonprofits, here's what's happened. If you're a tier 1 program, what does your budget look like with the 10%? With 10% less, 22 tier 2, 20% tier 3, 30%. And the nonprofits responded with, oh, we're going to get less money from United Way. Well, I think we'll combine those two centers. Or we're going to redouble our marketing efforts, and we're going to reach out. And some of them said, we flat out can't do with less money, and if you're not going to do it, we're going to have to go find it ourselves. And it was interesting to see the variety, because United Way or the community, there's not enough local resources to replace state lost money. And so what I'm going to be looking for, I'm not going to pick and choose and say, oh, that was worth support. We're going to step in and save their day. No. I want to see what those strategies are, because what we're going to be responding to is how can we help you go where you've got to go next.
Yeah, I think a lot of you will find resources and strategies that you never thought of before because you have to.
I was just gonna add too, you know, we were joking, but like, people have been here before, not the exact same situation, but, you know, with COVID, I'm sure all of you remember, pretty much everyone's funding sources started to say, hey, let's not talk about that issue, we really need to talk about COVID and what's happening with everything else gonna cause for the rest of the world. And what we did that particular year is, you know, I just, again, like I told Rose, I'm raising $1 million, and I'm like, uh-oh, where'd everyone go? And so that one year, we only raised $54,000. But then the next year, we raised $300,000. And the next year, we raised $400,000. So, you know, consider yourself, you know, there's going to be setbacks. But as Rose was mentioning, these are long-term problems in our community. And national funding, worldwide pandemic, whatever, you know, that's, I think people's passion and heart are in philanthropy for the right reason. And sometimes it takes just going back and continue knocking on those doors, to your point, John, and saying, some people are going to say, not acceptable, I still need the funds. Some are going to say, I can be more efficient with my time. Some are going to say, let's collaborate or do an event together. So I would just say that I think, you know, Fort Worth is resilient, and a lot of people in philanthropy are very resilient. And, you know, I think this will be another blip, unfortunately, on the radar, but we'll have to push through.
This also ties into knowing your donors. For your long-term stability, if you know your donors and your donors are invested in what you do, you're going to have less attrition because those people are going to support you through the good times and the bad times. Some of them won't.
Yeah.
Some of them won't be able to. But knowing your donors and knowing that you are all in it together will be helpful.
One of the obvious questions relates to what you said, John, about changing times, and I think you said also earlier, Jess, about these are big, thorny problems that take a long time, and we're so much in this instant gratification world now where we don't solve the problem, like, oh, well, we'll move on to something else. So, so the question was, you know, what, in terms of the newer generation, they're probably closest to representing Jess, but if anybody here can feel that, I mean, what is
Me or John?
Not me.
But how do younger givers look at giving? What motivates them? How do we connect with them differently?
Well, I'm an equal opportunist. I'll take your dollar if you're 80 or 10, you know. But I would say, so I'm just saying this as a piggyback on one of John's points. So our average donation is $2,600, and we've raised $1.6 million. We have 3 foundations that have participated. The majority of our funds come from using our real estate network for good, and making that a part of kind of the requirement of working with M2G, and that you're not just making $1, you're also trying to do something. And that's not a written requirement, that's kind of more of like a, we'll notice eventually over time if you lean out. But I think it's interesting for people to know that, because when we first started down this route, the exact same thing, I had several people, I talked to Rose, I talked to a bunch of people, I had very good mentors in the space. Okay, if we can just get a couple foundations, then then it'll start just rolling in. Well, the likelihood is that exactly what John described, which is they want to see, and Dr. Tarrant will say the same thing, a community-led initiative. And if you can get the community to rally behind you and decide that it is unacceptable to accept the current outcomes we're currently receiving, that is where you see generational change. I think that I tell you all that about the average donation because a lot of people when we first got started, even my friends were like, I don't have any money to give or whatever. And it's like, okay, volunteer, help me put on this event or whatever the case is. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but the younger generation, they want to feel an impact. They want to be a part of it. I would say, but our average age is probably of a giver, I'm going to guess, is probably mid-50s. I mean, because it is still, I would say that the general statement is the younger you are in your career, even though, we chose to, stop the buck with us, but the earlier you are in your career, the harder it is for you to give. That's just the general mentality of all people. That's just a thing. And so using your time, I think, is where a lot of people tend to latch on. And I do think the younger generation is more philanthropic than they used to be in terms of time and gifts and contributions.
Yeah, we see from our vantage point that across generations, the giving, and it's actually really encouraging to me to see that the values actually transcend generations. They're expressed in different ways because of the experiences people have had, because people give to what they know about, Fort Worth Report, or what they've experienced. So this next generation, you think about it, growing up in a world where September 11th is on your doorstep, the recession, COVID,
Social
maybe
media.
less trustworthy of institutions, not giving because they should give, but because they really want to see the difference they're making, as you said, feel the mission and see the impact. I'm excited for that because we know how much more happens, John, as you said, when it's not just writing a check, but it truly is showing up and giving so much more than that.
Well, I think again, it's creating that sense of community, making them feel a part of something. As with the Big Good, we have a strategy and we have an event, and our event is a high-priced ticket. And that was the strategy that we decided to take. But we always wanted it to be accessible to everybody. So we are really diligent about providing opportunities at every level for volunteering, for we're getting better at the volunteering. That takes a staff to manage volunteers, as you know. But at every price point, we really want to provide opportunities for people to get engaged. And that's knowing what they want to be engaged with also. We work with 4 different beneficiaries, T3, UCC, Presbyterian Night Shelter, and the Food Bank. And some of our donors give to us because we're the Big Good. Some of our donors give to us because they love one of those organizations. Some of them give to us because they love one of the projects within the organization. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen with younger people is that find out, and as Rose said too, they're not giving to the institutions as much, they're giving to a particular product and they want to see results. And so the reporting on what the results are, we do food pantries, we do all kinds of projects, but if we can say your dollars helped graduate a student or your dollars helped open a food pantry, I think they're more educated in where their dollars are going and more interested in the reporting of those dollars.
John, I wanted to let you, I can't believe how fast this hour's going, but I wanted to let you close this out with something you prepared from, I don't know if it's from your book or just from your years of wisdom.
No, I prepared this yesterday afternoon while I was waiting for my 2 o'clock people to arrive. And I promise you, this is not a setup, but it's gonna touch things that Kelsey said specifically, Jess said specifically, and Rose. So, what does it take to have the heart of philanthropy? Now, I was too lazy to make it mnemonic with the Fort Worth report. So I made it with Carter.
We'll keep that one.
Okay, so C, you're gonna care about the issue or the cause. That's the first thing for the heart. You're gonna have to articulate and make known the need to others. You're gonna have to be realistic and rational about your expectations and strategies. You're gonna take others under your wing to educate and mentor them. You're going to engage volunteers because the funding will follow their hearts. You're going to recognize it takes your time, your experience, and your resources to make it happen. So that's part.
If you're not on John and Charlotte's Christmas card list, you need to be because they are so creative.
Well, I just want to, have everybody thank these panelists. They're amazing again. Thank you so much. What you all do for our community is so remarkable, and all of you, what you all do, thank yourself for coming. I want to remind everybody that there are sponsorship opportunities for our next event. That's how it's happening. Jody Newton's right here. She's our Director of Corporate Community Relations. I want to have our Director of Development close us out. Sonia Wears a Whiskey. She's a Fort Worth native who has a lot of her own wisdom to share.
Well, the panelists took my pitch. No, thank you all so much for being here. I just wanted to take a moment. I want you all to see what I see and just indulge me for a minute and a half and look to the person to your left, look to the person to your right, really see who is in this room today. You are people who deeply, deeply care about your community. And I would say that's true for all of us at the Fort Worth Report. I'm a Fort Worth native. Our work is deeply personal. Rose said, start with the facts. Our journalists, thank the journalists that you see in the room because they are working so hard. We talked about tenacity, resilience. Our journalists are relentless as well. I mean, we are working so hard to bring you information that connects you to one another, to connect our community so broadly across the 2.2 million people that call Tarrant County home. There is some information out in your chairs, but I just wanted to share an opportunity for members this summer to continue this conversation that we're having right now because we know conversations like this are so important. So we're opening up the newsroom in June and July, Thursdays at 10 o'clock for members to come in, have coffee with us, and talk. What matters to you? What are you seeing in the community? How do we better serve you? We're only 4 years old, and we're learning along the way. So you'll also see, with an invite link to all of the coffees coming up, you'll see an event survey, and I know we always talk about surveys, but this is so important for us because we take your feedback so seriously. Please take that survey. And finally, if you are a member of the Fort Worth Report, that is, if you've given at any level at all, from $1 and higher, please stand up and be recognized. Wow, thank you. And I invite all of you to stand